Okay.
All right, let's call the meeting to order. I have 7:05. Item number 1 is the consent agenda. I did not see reports from the Friends or the Foundation.
Nor did I. I did not receive any, and that's why I did not forward any. So I will make a motion to accept items 1 and 2, the minutes of our November 2020 regular meeting and Union Public Library Association report, to accept them as our consent agenda.
Oh, hold
Chris.
on for a sec. Yeah, I don't know if you have to do this. I got an edit from Kim for the minutes. So I just to let everybody know, on like 1C, when I wrote it, let's say the sentence says the error totals $9,000 for one staff member on a family plan and $1,500 for 4 staff members on individual plans. She just wanted me to put $1,500 each for 4 staff members. Okay, I don't even know if I have to tell this to you, but I figured I would, because I don't think she sent it to everybody, right?
No.
Okay, so I don't know how you guys work it for the edit. So that's, I was just gonna edit that if everybody's okay with that.
Could you repeat the totals again?
It was the error totals $9,000, Corinne's, $3,000 for one staff member on a family plan, and $1,500 each. That's the addition, each.
Yeah,
4 staff.
100 for 4 staff members.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so you guys are okay with that?
Carol, do you need to amend your motion?
I think that what happens is you should pull the minutes off the consent agenda, offer that correction. We'll vote on that, you know?
So you have to wait to next month. So you can't say,
Oh, I think we can do it right now,
oh, okay, yeah.
right?
Okay. So pull,
So just make a motion to remove the,
well, you could say with corrections.
as corrected,
As amended. You
right?
could also say that.
Okay, but why don't you make a motion to correct or amend the minutes as just described?
Okay, I will make a motion to amend the minutes on the suggestion of Kim as described, putting each after 1,500 on item.
I'll second that.
You'll second?
All in favor?
Okay.
Motion passes.
All right, and we'll go back to accepting the consent agenda, which now consists of the corrected minutes to our November meeting and the Union Library Association report.
Second. All in favor? Motion passes. Excellent. Let's move on to reports. The treasurer's report.
Okay, so let me just pull up my report here. So we had a fairly uneventful month as far as expenses goes. We
love uneventful.
Yes, me too. Our contracts consisted of regular septic service and our regular fire inspection service. You'll notice that there is a charge in our staff development line that was for the notary fee for our adult services and programs librarian. I'm happy to report that we will now have 2 notary publics on staff, which is great in case one is on vacation, the other one is available. And our utilities consisted of electricity as well as 3 propane deliveries. We are still waiting for the next electricity bill, but I have been checking the meter and it has been running lower than expected, more in line with what last year around this time was. So we're on the up and up there, and not in terms of expenses, just in terms of things being good with the electricity again. We are still running the low payroll totals due to low staffing levels right now. As you remember, we are down a part-timer, a 19-hour per week position, and also our pages. So right now our payroll savings are right around 5,700 for where we should be at this point in the year. So we're doing quite well there. The Library Consortium did vote to extend going fine free through February 2021. Okay, I got that out. So that was voted on by the consortium, and we actually haven't seen a major impact from this yet. We are still collecting fees for lost or damaged items and also for printing. So we set a pretty low estimate for this year for that line, fines, fees, and printing line at 1,000, and right now we are at 1,112. So we're not collecting room fees, of course, but that is also another part of that line there. For January, I do think our maintenance line is going to be a little close to the budgeted amount of $18,700. We did just have what's called the transducer replaced. If you would like to ask me what that does, I have no idea. I can look it up for you, but it's part of our HVAC system, and it is something that did need to be replaced by our vendor, GM Refrigeration. So with that coming through, we also have had another toilet malfunction. I caught it actually earlier last week. And so we will have a plumbing bill as well for building maintenance. I would say at this point, if we have any other toilets have this issue going forward, I'm just going to opt to go to a manual flush mechanism, because the automatic flush is where we're getting tripped up when those malfunction, and that really racks up our water bill. So I will be sure to present, if we need one, a line item transfer for building maintenance at the January meeting in consultation with the board treasurer if it is needed. So I'm going to work with Karen, who's our office administrator, over the next couple of weeks to really look at a transfer that's reasonable if we're going to think we need some added funds in there. But the majority of the repairs in this line are unexpected and usually found during our regular service visits. So our service visits are doing the trick in keeping up with everything as far as building maintenance goes. Any questions about income and expenses so far? Okay, so
Andy, you're on mute.
You answered my question about building maintenance. I was going to ask that question, but you've answered it. I'm all set.
Great. Okay, so I'll move on to Bank Newport. So this, of course, is where our program expenses come from, and this month it consisted of craft expenses for the teen department and a large AccuCut purchase for various half-priced die cutting supplies that our children's department mostly uses. I actually included a link to AccuCut in your notes just so it showed a description of what that was. It's actually a pretty cool machine, and it is very expensive for us to buy the cutout dies is what they're called. So to get half price off is our language. We love that. So future thinking about programming there. And I think that was about it for our, let me just double check here, about it for Bank Newport. And that's correct. So that sums up the treasurer's report. Any questions?
I just wanted to make a note that I logged on to Bank Newport and I double checked and verified the balance that Karen reconciled is in line.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
I had one question, and I don't know which report I'm looking at. Oh, the town reconciliation. Did you get to that yet?
That was sort of included in my income and expense reports. So which part do you have a question on?
We're on page 2, and it says new transactions, 15 items, and we've got a whole bunch of dates from 2021.
Health benefits. Okay,
Right.
so that,
May and June, are we cutting those checks already?
yes, we typically do. Those go in pretty early. And it looks like, yep, the number of staff are in there. So it's for health and dental.
And so why are they dated 2021, but we're deducting them now? I guess that's the confusion.
They pull at the half year, I believe. And it's almost like a monthly payment. And I believe they do it that way in case we had a staff member leave and not have benefits for the remainder of those months, then they can easily see how much money is due back.
So this is the town treasurer, it's her system, in other words?
Yes, I can definitely double check on my explanation with them.
It just, it seems strange that we're clearing checks dated June 2021. But if that's how the system works, I'll believe you.
Okay.
Well, can I just, I noticed that too, but I did find it kind of strange as well. I don't understand. I think you're right, Carol. I think we need a better explanation of why we do that. I'm a little confused by that as well. I've noticed it in the past, but I didn't question it, but I'm glad you brought it up because I don't understand why we would prepay health benefits. I guess I don't get it.
Even to the town.
Yeah.
I'm going to write that down right now and I will email her tomorrow and double check.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's a good question.
Any other questions, or shall we move on to the director's report? Catherine?
Okay, let me just pull up my summary here. Okay, so as far as statistics go, we had a steady number of visits compared to October. And since the pause began on November 30th, we have seen a decrease in patrons physically walking through our doors, but our drive-through and porch pickups have picked up, which is a good thing. That's exactly what we were hoping for, to keep everybody safe and make sure that we weren't increasing our capacity in the building. So our circulation, I guess the real tell here is our circulation. So that's been holding steady in November compared to October. We're still a little early to see what December's is going to be like with the pause going on, but we still have our normal amount of delivery items coming in and we get that 5 days per week. Our E-zone statistics have also continued to exceed last year's totals, and I think that's really sort of a good tell that we're still busy, just in different ways. And I'll move on to COVID operations update if there are no questions about the statistics. Okay. So as I mentioned above in the reports that I'm reading from, all of our programs right now are being restricted to outdoors, virtual, or take home. So on days like today, our story walk wasn't able to run. We typically reschedule it for a Thursday, but that looks like it's going to be a little different this week.
Even worse.
Yes, so we might just not have a story walk this week, but that has been a very popular program, and I'm happy that we're able to use our outdoor space for something around this time of year. There were no new guidelines for libraries during the pause. What I like to tell folks is that as far as our regulations go, we're sort of between an office space and a grocery store is how our regulations go here in libraries. So we are definitely operating in accordance with OLIS's current recommendations, which is that libraries should be allowed open for pickup, drop off, browsing and computer use, really those quick visits. And we're also making sure that our patrons are stopping in and leaving within 30 minutes. There are several libraries right now that have opted to only do curbside or some sort of pickup option, and that patrons are not actually allowed to go in the buildings right now. This is due to what cities and towns decide upon and how things should be running right now. This is also due to staff shortages due to quarantine or illness. So we are going to continue to operate at our current level here as long as we possibly can, barring any major issues. And our patrons can find our most up-to-date information on our library website by calling us, or one of the great ways they can learn about what we have going on is by signing up for the e-newsletter, and that's also on our website. Any questions about COVID operations? Okay.
All right, let's move on to new business. Discussion possible vote on the trustee meeting calendar. The dates looked fine to me.
I just wanted to check in, I guess mostly with Catherine. Does the third Monday of the month work for you? Because we ended up here because of an individual member's calendar. We used to meet, I think, on the second Wednesday of the month. And it really makes no difference to me, but since that member no longer sits on the board, I thought, well, maybe we should open up the discussion again and see if there's a date that works better for the current board. You know, a day of the week and week of the month. I don't know. Of course, we all joined now with the third Monday of the month. And so if we couldn't do that day, we wouldn't have joined.
So the second Wednesday of the month and the third Thursday of the month, those are my Friends and Foundation meeting nights respectively.
Okay, so everything else is kind of shifted into place. As long as it still works for everybody, as I said, that's fine with me, but I think it's probably good periodically to just double check with everybody that it's not, you know, creating hardship, because we do have some flexibility. Okay, I'm good then. I'm good sticking with the third Monday of the month.
I move that we accept the dates as presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Motion passes. Excellent. Discussion possible vote on the library holiday calendar.
I can take this part. I have a little bit of an explanation for this one, if that's okay with you. Okay, so I prepared the 2021 holiday calendar to reflect the observed holidays in accordance with the regular set holidays. I did take a look at the state calendar, and as you know, if a holiday falls on a weekend in the state of Rhode Island, it is always observed on a Monday. So I did make sure that was reflected in the calendar. I also did have some food for thought in there about early closing on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve starting in 2021. And I had some thoughts about that. We currently close at 3 p.m. on both of those days. I am wondering if the board would consider closing at 1 p.m. on both of those days instead, or if you would prefer to keep a 3 p.m. closure on New Year's Eve. I'm wondering if the board would think about a closing for a full day on Christmas Eve. I did have some backup to this, which I can go into, and also a little bit of research as well.
My first question would be, and I think you answered this sort of in the backup, we don't have many patrons coming through the door after 1 on Christmas Eve, which kind of makes sense to me. So if it's based on usage, it seems very reasonable to roll that back to 1 p.m. What are visits like on New Year's Eve?
It's interesting you ask. So we actually have what's called a noon Year's Eve party here. And that goes from 11:30 to around 12:15 or 12:30. So for the little ones who may not stay up until New Year's, at midnight, we do the New Year's Eve party. So that was something our staff, I did ask them if closing at 1 would interfere with that, and they said it would not, and they still want to keep doing that in sort of the normal years. This year will be a little bit different, but in the normal years they would like to keep that. But our usage after that happens is very low. We are not a party hub, so it tends to drop off as soon as that program is over with.
What about Christmas Eve between 10 and 1?
Scarce, to be honest. I think everybody is home and preparing for the next day. Of course, that's probably a little bit different this year, depending on celebrations. I also know that not all of our patrons celebrate the Christmas holiday. So that was my thinking between the two options to give you, is that if we did want to stay open on New Year's Eve just for a few hours, then that would give our folks who would not have access to the physical library on Christmas, when they may want to use it, those extra hours. So two different options. I think both would work for us.
One of the things I liked was, and I think it's important that, is it item 4, you said an intangible impact would be a boost to staff morale. I think it would be great to do staff morale anytime you can. And it's, but I wasn't sure if it's going to be, are you suggesting, because I like the idea of closing at 1, but it's just because I always think that's a great morale to have, but that would not impact on them, correct?
So it would, because they would actually gain 2 extra hours of holiday time for the day that we close at 1.
Okay. I mean, I still think it's worth it if we can do it. I just think it's been so tough for so many people.
And numerically, if we closed at 1 p.m. on both Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, our full-time staff members would gain 4 hours of holiday time. And we have one staff member who works 25 hours per week, so that would be prorated to about 3 hours, I think. And then if we were to close on New Year's Eve, I'm sorry, on Christmas Eve for the full day, but keep the 3 p.m. on New Year's Eve, that would be, I believe it's 5 hours, 5.5 hours of holiday time per staff member, and around 4 for the prorated staff member.
I do like the consistency of closing at 1 p.m. on both of the eves. I think as patrons, I don't know about everybody else, but it, like, that consistency would make it easier for me to remember the hours. Oh, okay, well, if they closed at 1 on Christmas Eve, then New Year's Eve, they're probably closing, rather than, you know, open till 3 and not open at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also considering, as you said, patrons who don't celebrate Christmas, who appreciate the access not only to the books, but to the computers, that they would miss if there were, you know, two full days without access. So that would be my first preference, the 1 p.m. on the 2 eves.
I would agree with Carol, but I have to say I don't feel adamant if someone does feel very strongly differently. Any other comments?
I agree with Mrs. Herman. Consistency is needed. So if it's 1 o'clock, it's 1 o'clock all the way through, not one day and 3 another day. So it can be confusing.
Would you like to move that we be consistent, Carol?
Sure, I'll make a motion that in 2021, our holiday hours for Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve will include a 1 p.m. closure.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Motion passes. Excellent.
Thank you.
Long range plan update.
Me again. Okay, let me take a look here. Okay, so I divided this into sort of the major areas. I know we just had an update in October, so I divided this into the major areas that the plan highlights instead of just, check off the goals and the tasks. I wanted this to be a little bit more organic here. So I'll go through this. As far as library access goes, that is one of the goals, and increasing access to the library, increasing hours. As you know, we did that back in June of 2019. So we're doing pretty well with that goal. I will say recently patrons have been really pleased that we have back our normal hours, and with the current level of service, despite everything going on, we are averaging over 2,000 patrons coming through our doors each month. And of course, with our outdoor pickup options, that is even higher. As you know, I'm not in favor of increasing hours on Sundays. We don't have them, so I'm not in favor of adopting Sunday hours in fiscal year 21 this year or fiscal year 22, but I think that adopting hours on Sundays should be part of that long range plan, absolutely, as a way to draw our patrons back into the building once it is safe in the library. A lot of our patrons come in just to use our Wi-Fi or our meeting rooms or our tables and chairs, and those are just things that we don't have right now. So I think once we have those things back, we're going to see a nice flood of folks coming back through our doors.
Are we getting a lot of requests for Sunday hours?
So that has been, so in the survey that was done for this long range plan, and also the survey that we did this last December through January, Sunday hours was the biggest ask in both of those surveys, along with, of course, Tuesday hours, restoring our Tuesday hours on the original long range plan survey. So
Do we have an estimate of what that would add to the budget?
yes, I did price it out, and I think I might have sent that with the budget approval back in October, but I can send that to you again. It would be between $6,000 and $8,000 for the year.
That's not unreasonable.
No, it's not. And I think that was for 32 Sundays. So typically libraries will go for the academic year, so like September to May. And I think I had actually counted it out, us starting in October to the middle of May, not including Memorial Day. So
That would be nice to see.
absolutely.
That's not unreasonable.
Yes, the only thing that we need to consider with Sundays is that staff must be paid time and a half. So that was why seems maybe like a little higher than normal staff wages, is because it's time and a half.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll
Well,
continue.
can I ask just a further, sorry,
That's okay.
how many hours, if you did that, how many hours would that entail?
So
We
it's
hope that.
typically 4. So we
Okay.
would either do like 12 to 4 or 1 to 5.
Okay,
I typically favor 1 to 5 just because if somebody does have a religious service that they want to attend in the morning, then that gives them time to come to their job afterwards if they're working Sundays.
good, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so as far as communications go, we are still sort of finding our way with how to best get the word out to our patrons in times of COVID. It has been sort of a whirlwind of how quickly things change. So we're sticking to our monthly e-newsletter, our newspaper ads, library website, and also take-home flyers. Those are pretty much our main methods of communication. And I think that we're definitely going to go with sponsored posts now that things have sort of leveled out and we're going to be at this level of service for a little while. That's always something I'm a little worried about, is that we're going to put money into a sponsored social media post and then have regulations change at the drop of a hat. One of the other things I was thinking about in terms of communications is our website. So I have heard wonderful things about our website, but like all things in the technology field, every 5 to 7 years is a good lifespan for a website. And we're starting to come up on that 5-year mark with our website. So I think probably starting next year would be a good idea to think about funding a new website for us. And I did include sort of a price range in my notes here. It can range from $7,000 to $15,000. This was actually something I had done at my previous position before coming to Tiverton, in my capacity as a digital services librarian, was work with a website vendor on a library's new website. So I have pretty recent experience with it, and it can take anywhere from 4 to 8 months depending on the process, as far as like selection of a vendor goes, any edits needed. I think this website was done in-house by a staff member previously, but I think next time we might want to go with a website vendor. And
I believe it was done by a firm called O'Toole and Parr.
okay, gotcha. Okay, that's a good piece of history. Something I don't always have, so thank you. So it's always something to look to in the future. I would recommend this more for fiscal year 23. I think is going to be a good target for our website. And we may want to consider some of our different funding sources as well. Maybe this is something for the foundation, or maybe this is something that the Friends may want to assist with, but all up for discussion. No decisions need to be made tonight, so.
That sounds very reasonable, especially if we're looking at FY23. Websites just need new design. It's like fads or fashions with anything else, and it starts to look dated, and people get used to a different kind of design, and then if they come to an older kind of website, it strikes them as clunky and they can't move through it as quickly. It doesn't work on their mobile device as well. And so I would certainly support this in the time frame you've indicated.
Great. Okay, so next up is programs. So programming staff hard at work, and they are starting to look at how programs will look next summer and into next year around this time. So we're looking at hopefully post-pandemic world at that time. I really, really hope so. And some of the ideas that they've bounced off of me so far are a children's book group or book club, expanding our slate of outdoor events. This time has really shown us all of the wonderful things that we're able to do outside, beyond our concerts and larger events that need more space. And I think that we also really want to focus on some programs that highlight equity, diversity, and inclusion, and make sure that we're really bringing a wide variety of programs to our library, as we always have. I'll move on to our collection. So the fiscal year 22 budget draft recommends an increase to the collection budget. I think this is a pretty good step in ensuring that our patrons have access to our new and updated materials, and making sure that our collection is offering all of their information needs that they are seeking. We also have been hard at work with staff training and online options for that. Typically, I try and include a component of staff training in our monthly staff meetings, but we have not all been able to meet physically together in about 2 months now. I just don't think it's worth the risk of having all of us, even socially distanced with masks on, in the same room together. So one of the really great trainings that our staff have had access to through OLIS has been trainings by a man of the name Ryan Dowd, and he highlights some of the sort of tips that librarians can use to help with patrons who are homeless and experiencing homelessness. But a lot of the tips he uses can translate to diffusing situations or working with somebody who may have a disability that makes it hard for them to communicate between the staff and the individual. So those have been really helpful for our staff. I've had great feedback on that. We're also using Web Junction, which is really just a variety of different library staff trainings. I know our reference librarian had asked me the other day about different genealogy sites and sort of beefing up our genealogy section on our website. So I sent her in that direction towards Web Junction because it is a really great resource. I've actually taken one through there on building maintenance. And I can say every single thing that they talked about, we are doing. So I was really happy with that. So I think that we're doing the best we can as far as trainings and customer service and communication goes. And I think our staff have done a phenomenal job navigating that, especially when it's a little tough to explain all the different changes in services right now. Okay, and last but not least, as far as funding goes, so the town administrator, as far as I know, is still working on the fiscal year 22 draft. I have requested a few times to meet with him about that draft, just to go over sort of the ins and outs of our budget and explain the backing behind our request. I haven't been able to meet with him yet, so I will keep at it. And the great news is that the governor's proposed budget, which I think just passed the House last week, has the library grant and aid level funded, which is okay. But that means the estimate that we have been using, I think it's around $122,700. I know I'm off by a few dollars there, but that will be coming to fruition as long as it passes. So that's good news for us. And that means there won't be major changes to that, what that anticipated amount was. So all good news there.
Good.
And that's what I have for the long range plan update. I will keep on updating you all every 3 months. We're back on our usual schedule now. I think we took a little bit of a detour over the summer with it being on different months, but we're back on track.
Excellent. Thank you, Catherine. Does anyone have any questions? Or shall we move on to our final item?
I have a question.
Yes, Sandy.
Regarding the collection, is there any funding available from the foundation to beef up the collection?
So it's interesting you ask. They are working on their Buy a Book campaign, which essentially I've given them a list of areas of the collection that would be, we would love funding to beef up those areas. So donors would say, you know, we would really love to donate X amount of dollars for the cookbook section. And that money would then go to our reference librarian who would purchase books for that. So they're working on it, is the roundabout way of saying it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, the final item on our agenda was put forward by Kim, who is not with us. Can anyone speak to this item, discussion possible vote on holiday staff appreciation ideas?
I received it in an email from Kim. I did not speak to her, and there were no other details.
Then I guess we're not going to be able to discuss this at the moment.
Yeah, I
Well, it
think,
might not be holiday, but it might be staff appreciation days for 2021.
right.
It
You
won't,
don't
it
have
won't
to wait
be,
for a holiday to do staff appreciation.
well, yeah. So,
All right.
except if they leave at 1 o'clock, Christmas Eve and Christmas New Year's Eve. But I don't think she meant that. I think she was thinking of something else. So,
All right, if there's nothing else on the agenda, I move that we adjourn.
second.
All in favor?
Yep.
Thank you all very much. This has been a tough 2020, and I wish you all a healthy and safe and better 2021. And thank you again.
Yeah, happy holidays to
Happy
everyone.
holidays, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
All right, good night.
Good
Night
night.
all.
Good night, everyone.
Night.